Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us today. The press conference is the final sign that a new IDFA is coming soon. So let's start with the new edition's trailer as soon as I find the clicker in my pocket.
I love you. I love you.
Thank you. Please proceed.
The thermal camera turns them into ghostly figures.
So, first, before we go into the many things we have to tell you about this year's IDFA, I have to begin by acknowledging that this press conference and the upcoming festival do not come at a nice moment of history. That we do not do this without acknowledging the massive pain that many people are feeling today in different parts of the world. Documentary film is not and should not be about immediate response or direct commentary. That's not how it works. That's not what we believe in. That's not how we believe that documentary film and a documentary film festival like IDFA can be useful to the world. To us, respecting the human pain starts from acknowledging that all these civilians being murdered in different parts of the world, including yesterday's unfortunate, painful explosion or bombing of a hospital in Gaza, are things we cannot just skip or pass by silently. People, civilians, are being murdered in wars they have not chosen to be part of, and they have no choice in anything about. However, documentary filmmakers did tell us that this was coming. No matter how terrible, how atrocious, it's not a surprise. Preludes and introductions led to this. Many films were shown at IDFA over the past 36 years of the festival's life, told us that this would happen. Film has been telling us and reminding us that oppression breeds extremism, that the lack of hope, losing hope, breeds anger and violence, that violence breeds violence, that pain breeds pain. This is why a massive disaster like what's happening now in Gaza and Israel is exposing, making clearer massive gaps, conflicts between North and South, West and East, between European citizens here and different minorities of Europeans in these cities we live in, even exposing conflicts between generations, different generations who have different takes and different approaches to what's happening. What we do, what IDFA does, is to give space for serious and responsible debate, to give space to filmmakers to tell us how they see the world within their own subjective views and what they see for the future. I do believe that things would have been much better if we all listened. So let's have a festival and try honoring all those who are killed to listen better. Now, we move on. The festival is our response to all of this, and what we are doing here in this building is our contribution. Our contribution is to create a space in Amsterdam, in the heart of the city, in Vondelpark, right here, where everyone, every Amsterdammer is allowed and given space to express themselves, but also to connect with a bigger world. What we do is that we offer an open world where you are not living only within the limitations of your daily life. We all find ourselves in these narrower and narrower experience of daily life. That's the nature of walking the same streets every day. That's the nature of doing the same tasks every day. And that's how we get stuck. We get stuck, and then we get trapped in our own ideas. And when we do that, we find ourselves, again, incapable of appreciating the pain of the other. And wars start. So, film festival, and documentary film in particular, is just about that. About us not being trapped in our own ideas. About opening big windows so that we are part of the world and not isolated from the rest. At Vondelpark, IDFA is taking over a building that looks really fancy. We are going to fill this beautiful building with reality, with the reality of the entire world. And we will welcome filmmakers, the film community, and also the audience. It so happened that our very first screening in our newly minted cinema, just there, was with All the Beauty and the Bloodshed of Laura Poitras. More and more is coming, and IDFA at Vondelpark, although still under construction, will also be part of the programming at IDFA, the festival, during the 11 days of the festival in November. Here, we will have a cinema, 2 multi-purpose spaces, this being one of them, and we will have a social space where filmmakers, film lovers can meet, read, have their discussions, and feel at home. The campaign of this year and the video clip that you saw are part of what we started last year by every year commissioning a different artist to make their own reflection on IDFA, on what we do. This year, it was artist Eliane Esterbotz, whose short film In Flow of Words won many awards around the world 2 years ago, and who has brilliantly expressed her take on what we do. To Eliane Esterbotz, what we do is that we invite people to experience emotions, joy, rage, love, conflict, and so on and so forth. We are very grateful to her, to the work she has done, and we are also proud that our communication every year of every new edition is an open platform for different artists to tell us how they see us, how they see the work that we do, and the meaning of what we do. Now, I'll give the stage to my dear Casper Sonnen, the head of IDFA's Doc Lab, our new media department and part of the festival CAS.
So hello. Thank you, Orwa. Good morning, I guess, is the thing to start with. But moving on from where Orwa started earlier, I think one of the questions within the new media department this year we were playing with, exploring, was the question, is it possible to have a real human connection without any form of friction? And the answer, of course, is no. What applies to car tires and other inanimate objects also applies to human beings. Without at least some form of friction, there can be no touch, there can be no movement, can be no real connection. Technology, the thing that we work with a lot at the new media department, however, is often seen as the art of removing friction, as a perpetual quest for convenience and efficiency. But what are the costs of a reality ruled by frictionless algorithms, easy transactions, and automated echo chambers? Who ultimately benefits of that? And what did we lose already along the way? That brings us to the question, what instead might we gain if we somehow allow more space for benign friction, for interaction, for complexity and resistance to the status quo? Those are just some of the questions within this year's new theme, Phenomenal Friction, through which IDFA Doc Lab, with interactive and immersive exhibitions, live performances, and industry events, explores all kinds of friction in the world, inside ourselves, between new media artists and the awkward and uncanny technologies they continue to challenge, resist, and embrace. I have to thank a huge effort of the team this year, because it was a fantastic collective, frictionful, wonderful effort. And especially thanks to Jenny Tuoven and Nina van Doren and Carlotta Lupi, as well as everybody else in the team and all the artists involved. We don't have much time, so let's dive into the three main program sections, which are digital storytelling, immersive nonfiction, and the Doc Lab Spotlight program. And we start with digital storytelling. Digital storytelling brings together 10 projects and some of the most exciting digital art and interactive storytelling we have seen so far, such as projects redefining what video games can be, from the nocturnal online experience Hugo, the non-game, by Petrit Hoxna, to Despelote, a game within a game about the reality of playing games, by Julian Cordero and Sebastian Valbuena. Reflecting the ongoing rise of AR and mixed reality experiences, we have Tamara Shoalu presenting Anushka, bridging time and space, exploring themes like gentrification in a place very close to us in Amsterdam called De Bijlmer. As well as Phantom by South African artist Aluta Nul, using AR to explore different mental states in a intense but also darkly funny project. Then, proving that the internet is not just about fast-paced media, we see rich and layered multimedia experiences, such as the interactive documentary The School, A World by Ika Lapinska, and the pioneering Borderline Visible by Ant Hampton, fusing audio with a physical book in a strangely familiar yet completely new kind of interactive experience. Some projects explicitly invite us, demand of us, to do more than just read, watch, or click. A great example of this is the radically interactive climate action piece Offset Boiler Room by Tiga Brain and Sam Levine. And on the other side, we have the playful Squeaker app by Jiaobao Li, allowing your personal fitness routine to be controlled by a domesticated mouse living in a New York apartment. Which brings us to the last two projects from digital storytelling. First of all, Lauren McCarthy and Kyle McDonald's new project Voice in My Head, taking us far into deeply uncanny artificial intelligence territory. And the lovely 3D essay film Lateral by Charlie Shackleton, unlocking the immersive potential of old 2D movies. Which brings us to the next section, the immersive nonfiction competition. Here, in this year's expanded competition of 13 projects, we see a reflection of the international growth of XR and immersive art, with artists from more regions and backgrounds than we ever seen before. Overall, the lineup proves how immersive art is maturing artistically, even though it still brings together very different types of experiences and formats. First of all, inside VR headsets, we see unique and deeply human experiences, ranging from the powerful embodied experiences like Dance Permit Denied by Claudix Vanessix, as well as Close by Hana Umeda, to the playful Natalie's Trifecta by Nathalie Paneng, the heartwarming Buried in the Rock by Shahani Fernando, the metaphysical Texada by Josephine Anderson and Claire Sanford, and the intensely moving prison experience Going Back Home, Mother VR by Kathleen Alarcon. Going beyond the headset, we see physical installations like Redemption by Mariana Luisa and two other installations exploring the emerging space between cinema and artificial intelligence. First off, William Quayle's Pyramid, created by Piotr Wieniewicz and Constant Dullard, and entirely without the help of Werner Herzog. And then The Vivid Unknown, created by media artist John Fitzgerald, in close collaboration with Godfrey Reggio, famous for his 1982 documentary classic Koyaanisqatsi, which we will also be showing in tandem with this interactive installation during a live cinema event in I. And finally, within immersive nonfiction competition, we move into the multisensory and the collective live experiences, with Traversing the Mist, a virtual, somewhat social, and very surreal gay sauna experience by Tung Yen Chow. Turbulence, Jamais Vu, a grounded yet hallucinatory mixed reality installation by Ben Joseph and Emma Roberts. I went too quickly with the Turbulence. Then Nirit Pelet's This Conversation is Off the Record, a powerful immersive performance lecture about predictive policing happening right here in Amsterdam. Originally, this started out as a film project that was shown before at IDFA called Mothers. And finally, in the immersive nonfiction competition 1-2 by the Bulgarian immersive dance artist Christian Bakalov, presented in collaboration with Brakke Grond. And this is our most physical experience this year, combining sensory deprivation, echolocation, night vision goggles, and electronic music. And that's all I can say about it. Which brings us to our final program section, DocLab Spotlight Program. Here we feature 9 works reflecting all digital and immersive genres, ranging from international festival favorites to live performances and research projects. Highlights include the award-winning masterpiece Emperor by Marianne Berger, and Shadow Time, presented in collaboration with iFilm Museum by Sister Sylvester and Dennis Thornton. We also feature live performances presented in collaboration with IDFA's On Stage, as well as Sun Sum, a live motion capture performance by Kidus Haile Selassie and Ainsley Robson, presented in collaboration with ONX. And finally, from all the various other special projects and events, I'd love to mention a special live event with the Artist Planetarium this year, including Studio Polymorph, live music, and the posthumous full dome premiere of Wendela Scheltema's VR film A Horse. The annual DocLab conference will again be presented as a series of live cinema events, starting on 10 November with the festive opening of the Phenomenal Friction exhibition, running to 15 November with the live events. And for press access and press tours, please reach out to, there he is over there, our press officer, Michel Langendijk. And then before I hand you back over to Orwa, and the stellar film lineup of this year's IDFA, a huge thank you to all of DocLab's supporters and R&D partners, including the Ministry of Economic Affairs, ClickNL, the Netherlands Film Fund, Onassis, IDFA Dikke Vrienden Plus, and all our new and ongoing R&D partners. We can't wait to see you all in the Phenomenal Friction exhibition, which is still free to visit and runs in Brakke Grond until 19 November. Orwa, back to you.
Thank you, Caspar. Always exciting to hear about what's happening over there. Now, I'll try to cover a very vast ground as quick as possible and show you how we practically make sure that what we do here is relevant. Our guest of honor this year, as previously announced, is Wang Bing. Wang Bing is China's foremost filmmaker, or China's foremost documentary filmmaker. His works have been screened everywhere around the world. He's been awarded everywhere around the world. And he defines a new and different film language that is very different from common film language in the West. In a way, this is about learning the other language of another part of the world. Wang Bing was invited by us, as every year, as all of our guests of honors, to curate his top 10 films, the best films according to him from all time. For the third year in a row, our guest of honor refuses to do that. It is a very interesting intervention that started 2 years ago with Hito Steyrl and continued with Laura Poitras, and even more clearly with Wang Bing, who said, can it be my own selection, my own curation, rather than a list of the greatest films? And we found that to be exciting. What he did is much more meaningful, I must say, than choosing 10 films that are great. What he wanted to do was to pay tribute to a moment in the history of Chinese documentary film and in the history of China, because of that, that we wouldn't have thought about this way. According to Wang Bing, this era begins with the introduction of small digital video cameras. DV cameras introduced Chinese filmmaking to a totally different possibility of breaking with censorship, of making independent films, of being able to make films with no budget or with very low budget. And through that, introduced us really to the life of Chinese people, to those many films we came to learn through, or to watch and learn about what's life like for individuals inside that massive totalitarian system. His films start with that. So this is the earliest film comes from 1999, and the last film in his selection is from 2012. These 13 years, according to Wang Bing, are marked by a beginning of digital video, which coincided obviously with the economic openness of China that did not come with political openness, but was also giving a lot of hope to people there. And I would say myself that it ended in the early 2010s as Chinese nationalism started to rise and censorship and surveillance became so much more brutal that is leading to most of the famous Chinese filmmakers choosing to move to Europe in recent few years. A lot here to discover, and a lot here to discover in the sense of watching films that truly carry us to a different culture, to a different society, rather than watch films that operate in the same way that European films work. This is a true experience, a true exercise that I believe we all need to take to do. We are celebrating Wang Bing with a retrospective too. We are showing 6 films from him, starting with his masterpiece, West of the Tracks, and ending with the 2 most recent films that he introduced or premiered this year in the Cannes Film Festival. One of them being Youth Spring, which was one of the 2 documentary films in the main competition of Cannes Film Festival, marking almost 20 years since the last time before that a documentary film was entered into the Cannes competition. The other film being Man in Black. So much to discover here. West of the Tracks is a very long film, over 8 hours, that was shown at IDFA before, only when the guest of honor was Hedy Honigman, the late brilliant Dutch filmmaker, who selected this film as one of her top 10 films of all times. Our 2023 Lifetime Achievement Award is going to Peter Greenaway. Peter Greenaway is the dissident of the film world. If you ask Peter Greenaway what he thinks of fiction, he will tell you it's a very broadly uninteresting proposal to make film on the basis of literature, writing, novels, and to make film in the intersection between some theater with some literature, and then add some impact of painting. So that's lighting and image. But if you ask him what about documentary, he would tell you what he usually answers to this question, that the world is already created. Who needs an artist to remake that? That's not what we need. Greenaway has always been very categorically refusing to be seen as a documentary filmmaker or as a fiction filmmaker. He always is trying to define what film is, somewhere in the middle of that. Now, I believe that in this current moment of discussing what film is, what content is, what streaming is doing, what all of the different powers of film are trying to compete over defining good film, it is the right moment to invite such a great master and listen to his way of seeing film today, and listen to the way he sees his own proposals. We will be celebrating Peter Greenaway with a retrospective, only 5 films, but then there will be a 6th film that is his new unfinished film. So during the festival, we will have a truly magical opportunity to go into Shinsky Cinema and to spend time with Peter Greenaway, who will show us an unfinished film he's working on. And then we will have, I hope, a memorable conversation with him after that. As usual, our team curates focus programs. These are the programs, or the part of program that starts from our own opinion, our own angle, and then films come to examine the topic, the subject matter, or the stylistic question. Fabrication is our focus program examining the way that documentary film plays with reality. In a way, this is a program that shows 10 films, old and new, and here we can really think together, think and discuss, agree and disagree on how the truth can sometimes be introduced or presented in ways so different from the simple in front of the camera recording of what's happening. That sometimes a totally staged reality might be so much more a sincere representation of the truth than filming the truth directly with my telephone. This is a very big debate over the history of documentary film, and these 10 films will represent many different ways in which documentary filmmakers try to represent the truth creatively. I will go faster here, but I think the films here include some amazing masterpieces, as I mentioned, including Safi Faye, the Senegalese-French late filmmaker's beautiful film, Letter from My Village, bringing back Shirley Clarke and celebrating, it is quite an illustrious list. The second program, focus program, is 16 Worlds on 16. This year happens to be the 100th anniversary of 16mm film. 16mm film sounds like a question of technology or technique, but it is not, because very similar to what Wang Bing said about the introduction of DV in China and how the small camera DV created a whole new artistic and political experience in China. That is exactly what 16mm did 100 years ago and until only recently. 16mm was just simply a lighter camera and film stock that was less expensive. This allowed one person to make a film. This allowed more traveling. This allowed lower budget filmmaking. This allowed many in Africa, in India, in Southeast Asia, in Latin America to make films and to make films about the struggles of their people that was impossible before when cameras were bigger, heavier, and so much more expensive. So 16mm introduced the possibility of revolution, whether that means the revolution of a filmmaker such as, for example, such as Jean-Marie Thénault in Africa, Agnès Varda in France, or Chantal Akerman. Corresponding Cinemas is a new program, and it started with an encounter that I had with renowned Native American filmmaker and artist Sky Hopinka. I was having a chat with Sky Hopinka earlier this year when he told me that actually his work and the work of the collective he's part of, which is a collective of indigenous American artists and filmmakers, was deeply influenced by the work of renowned video artist Basma Al-Sharif, who is from Gaza. And Basma Sharif's work was an inspiration to the new beginning of Native American film expressions. And then this idea came about. We use the word inspiration in vain a lot. We speak a lot about inspirational speeches and inspirational speakers, but I think this is a much more deep sense of inspiration, of connection. What we did was to invite Sky Hopinka. We will show a film of his, and then I will be doing a conversation with him on stage. Then Sky Hopinka will invite Basma Al-Sharif with a few of her short films that she made in different parts of the world, including Gaza. And Sky will be having a conversation on stage with Basma himself. Basma will then invite a colleague who inspired her, and that is filmmaker and artist Jumana Manna, whose works we have shown at IDFA frequently before. And she will show a film of Jumana Manna, and then they will have a conversation. After that, Jumana is inviting iconic Sudanese filmmaker Ibrahim Shaddad. She will show 2 of his short films. She will have a conversation with him. After that, Ibrahim Shaddad is inviting Abdurrahman Sissako and showing his film Bamako. Best of Fest is, as every year, the largest part of our festival. In Best of Fest, we bring together the films that won awards that were celebrated in all the world's major festivals. And then we bring a few films that our programming team believes we must see. These are big films, small films from all around the world that we highly recommend and see as the year's best films before IDFA. Because, of course, when IDFA comes, there are other films that are also joining this list. This year, we are introducing a new, small, but important part of the festival. Special screenings is a very limited list of films. It's 4 films this year. As Kasper Sonnen told you now, we will be showing Koyanitsaki of Godfrey Reggio. This will be a special screening. But then we are also celebrating 3 different, very remarkable restorations of films. One of the most strongest stories of film this year is the restoration of the film of Raúl Ruiz and Valeria Sarmiento from Chile, that is socialist realism. Raúl Ruiz is an iconic Chilean filmmaker who died a few years back now. And we never knew, even if you knew the works of Ruiz, you would probably not have known that he made a film 50 years ago during the 1 year of Allende's government. And in that film, Ruiz was deeply critical. He made a parody. He made a film that is a mix of fiction and documentary, a satire of sorts, criticizing what's happening when the left took the government. And while he was finishing this film, the coup d'etat happened. Allende died, and then Ruiz himself was sent to exile. And that was a moment when Ruiz decided this is not a time to be critical of Allende. And the film stayed in the can until 1 month ago when it was re-premiered at the San Sebastian Film Festival. So we are very happy that we are immediately showing this film, because together with, for example, the film of Patricio Guzman from the same year, the first year, is the first film of the legendary Chilean documentary filmmaker Patricio Guzman. Together, these two films are our tribute to the 50th anniversary of the coup d'etat in Chile and our invitation to look back at this history. Then we are honoring the late Israeli filmmaker Giuliano Merchemis with a screening of his masterpiece, Arna's Children. Arna's Children was first premiered at IDFA 20 years ago today. It is one of the most brilliant films on the history and the story of this conflict. Giuliano was later murdered, and it is high time to rewatch the film, to remember such brilliant filmmaking, such brilliant filmmakers, in a film that was also a Dutch co-production, co-directed by the late Dutch editor Daniel Daniel. Signed is our new section that we already introduced a lot before, so I'm not going to go through the details of this. Signed is where we focus on the filmmaker rather than the film. It's where we are celebrating the new works of filmmakers that we believe are truly singular, that they have a strong fingerprint, they have a strong artistic style and approach. Here you will find the beautiful works of wonderful artists such as Tatiana Hueso, Maite Alberdi, Alexandra Cuesta, but then you will also watch the more expected films of masters like Claire Simon, Nicolas Philibert, Fred Wiseman, and so on and so forth. This is not to be missed. And then Paradox is our art documentary film section that is every year celebrating quite courageous approaches in film that include many remarkable artists this year, including Fiona Tan, Jyoti Mistry, Mariam Tafakuri, Lois Patino, and others. We are very sure that the selection of Paradox this year is exceptional. It Found Stage comes back. And here, It Found Stage is, for the past 4 years, a key part of what IDFA offers that is really the signature of IDFA. Here, we bring live events, performances, that bring together documentary film as a language or documentary art as a language with other performing arts. So these are events and performances that include the intersection between theater, music, dance, and documentary. Here, there are many different films and also new media on stage performances and events. The return of Michael Palmieri and Donald Mosher's work, Spectral Transmissions, which our audience enjoyed very much 3 years ago in a new part of the work. There's so much more to say here, but we have already, of course, announced these activities. We're particularly proud to have Cristiane Jatahi, the amazing Brazilian artist, with her new theater/documentary work that will be shown at ITA. I think this is necessity because it is also part of how we rethink about film or about the experience of going to the cinema. So on stage, whether it comes from film or from new media, is about a different or a new definition, a new possibility of what going out to the cinema could mean. It could be also, just like theater, a one-off that is ethereal, that will disappear after you have attended it, that you cannot keep at home on a DVD, and if you do, it will be just to remind yourself of that experience with others that you have been through. Now, IDFA competition for youth documentary is an ongoing work in progress. Every year we're thinking and working hard. IDFA has been investing for almost 2 decades in this, in trying to make documentary film part of the lives of a younger audience, in being there at schools, in being there with teachers, in inviting school children to come and watch films. This we will do a lot of here at Vondel Park with schools of Amsterdam. But on a wider level, IDFA is also advocating for the importance and the place of documentary film in the experience of younger people. In this year's programming process, we were very happy to recruit the help of an amazing filmmaker, that is Nikki Padidar, whose film was the opening film of IDFA last year, and who has previously, years back, won the award of Best Youth Documentary at IDFA with another film. Nikki worked with our team closely, and together we tried to make a courageous approach to what it means to show films to a younger audience, because Nikki took this a step further in examining and also writing about how film for younger audience is commonly stupefying, happifying, as she calls it, and she is defending that the younger audience should be respected and approached with reality as it is, protected but not infantilized and not in a way looked with condescendence upon. IDFA competition for short documentary had a very interesting experience in 2023. We had received 170% of the number of short film submissions that we received last year. This year, IDFA has experienced an absolute tsunami of short films. It was an exceptional moment that we found to be very meaningful, because it does mean that short filmmakers around the world do know that we watch shorts very seriously and that we care about this form. Here, you have the traditional understanding of short film as an entry level to filmmaking, as young filmmakers make a short film so that they get the chance to make other films. But not only, because there are some great filmmakers who spend their entire life making only short films. And there are great filmmakers who make a short film every now and then. So it is not only in the sense of looking at short film as a beginner's approach. And it is a true journey of film languages, of parts of the world, of different cultures, of different narrative approaches, that we are very proud to have. Frontlight is the part of IDFA where premiere films are launched to the world, films that try to examine the truth, films that try to tell us about subject matter in most cases, or to take us to the forefront of a topic. Many wonderful films, some exceptionally interesting films by a new generation of Dutch filmmakers also, looking at mostly and in a very interesting new way at the colonial history of the country and their relationship with it. We have films that tackle many different themes here, Ralph Buchler made In Wolf Country, which is a film that looks at the return of wolves into Germany and the way that the government and the political parties are trying to debate what to do and what is right and what is wrong. Should we kill the wolves? Should we control their multiplication? Should we leave them? Should we protect the sheep? Or should we stop the wolf? And the filmmaker manages to make an amazing, beautiful allegory while taking us to the very particular, borderline Kafkaesque world of parliamentary discussions about things like that. Luminous is the counterpart of Frontlight, where films take us on an experience rather than tell us. In Luminous this year, there are so many world premieres and international premieres, and I think some of the most exceptional films are here. And to comment, generally speaking, on Frontlight and on Luminous, I think here you will find a truly very interesting emergence of indigenous filmmaking from around the world. Filmmakers who come from indigenous communities have been in theoretical discussion for a long time, and we are so honored that their actual work is here, and not only the discussion about them making films, as in most times before. Love is also coming back. Many filmmakers are making films about love. The other thing is, colonial history seems to really be a serious topic that I think is very unpopular in mainstream distribution and in mainstream media. But it seems like filmmakers are not taking a no here. They are not settling for the fact that the market, the press are not so keen, or comparing their works to previous works that they did not feel were ever enough. I think this is an important message that we received and hope that we disseminate. Okay. Envision competition. Envision is the space where filmmakers are looking for what film is. It is the space where filmmakers are not following the formula and are trying to invent their film language, and that comes with as much diversity as humans are. In Envision competition, we will be celebrating the world premiere of Canuto's Transformation. Ariel Quaray Ortega and Ernesto Di Cavallo have made a film that is one of the most rich architectures of film that I can imagine. Canuto is the boy in the story that a village of an indigenous community all know. It is half story, half myth. And Canuto, as folklore or tradition proposes, actually was transformed into a jaguar, and then he died a terrible death. This story is part of the experience of this community for a long time. Everybody knows Canuto. And nobody really knows why this happened to him. The filmmaker goes there and starts to make a film of this story with the community there. It is a collaborative experience that starts with the challenge of casting who should play Canuto. And while everybody starts this filmmaking, borders start to disappear between acting and reality, between mythology and daily life, and we get to really meet a community that we never knew existed, that was marginalized for a long time. Chasing the Dazzling Light comes from Syrian filmmaker Yasser Kassab. Yasser Kassab is a refugee in Sweden, together with his partner, who is also a filmmaker. This film is a third film in a series examining this experience of being a refugee. We've shown his previous films before at IDFA. In Chasing the Dazzling Light, we will go with Yasser into this daily challenge of waiting for papers, of trying to find a job in a country where you are a refugee and where the laws for immigration are really tight. And then he calls his father and tells his father that he needs to make a film now. And his father tells him, yeah, but this time, please make a film that people would enjoy. Stop making these very serious films you keep making. What's the title? And Yasser says, Chasing the Dazzling Light. And he says, is that a title people will want to buy a ticket to go watch? For God's sake, find a better title. Here, Yasser Kassab starts painting this reality of being stranded in Sweden while trying to film via FaceTime the living room of his parents' home in Damascus, or in Aleppo, sorry, and trying to make sense of all of this experience that is not only his own. Thunska Pantsitvorkul is a renowned Thai filmmaker who is joining in vision competition with his new work, Damnatio Memoriae. This is a brilliant piece of really courageous filmmaking. What he is doing here is that he is so creatively trying to tell us how he sees recent world history. And the way he sees recent world history is simply that he thinks everything that looks nice is hiding some kind of disaster, some kind of bloody massacre, some kind of absolute corruption behind it, and that there is a lot and a lot and a lot of attempts to hide that. So he is there digging this up and trying to show us things in a different way. He is looking at historical events that we know very well. He's looking at Hiroshima and Nagasaki. He's looking at the space race during Cold War. But he also is introducing us to a totally different angle towards all of that, which is the angle that can be from Southeast Asia, where we get to also spend time with Teresa Teng. Teresa Teng being an iconic Taiwanese singer who for decades was the symbol of the connections between different cultures in that region. And we never knew of her. We never knew that she could be at the same time part of the propaganda of one country, but part of the subversive attempt to live with more emotions and more dignity inside, for example, the massive totalitarian regime of China. Damnatio Memoriae is one of the most special films I've seen this year. And then Gamma comes from Japan. Filmmaker Kaori Oda made this very special film that she chose to shoot on 16mm. She's taking us to caves in Japan, in the region of Okinawa. And in those caves that she's filming, we listen to the voice of a guide, a tourist guide, or a guide who is telling us stories from those places. In those caves, we come to learn how many people during World War II took refuge in those caves underground and ended up dying there, even committing collective suicide there because of the massive fear of the war outside and what the invaders, the Americans coming in, might do to them if they saw them. And Kaori Oda is looking at this experience with a very rich understanding of time that makes us really think about fear, about danger, about the relationship with overground and underground in our daily lives today. Ilya Povolotsky comes back with Mud. Povolotsky's previous documentary film, Froth, received a special mention a few years back at IDFA. And after that, he made a fiction film that was in Cannes des Cinéastes in Cannes. This is his return to IDFA with a film that is relatively short, a mid-length film that takes us to a very allegorical space, a health spa in the south of Russia, where built by Tsars in the 19th century, where therapeutical mud treatment is what happens. He chooses black and white and shows us this world of bureaucracy, this dream of getting better by therapy, by mud, and an image of a country, a microcosm, a representation of a country that is stuck in this gray shade of bureaucracy, of lack of appreciation to the individual, and the news of the war in Ukraine is blaring through every telephone silently without any direct effect, but also like a big cloud that stands between people, like that mud that they are covering themselves with. Mustafa Özünür filmed over 4 years with the most open understanding of filming, with many different approaches, many different styles. He filmed life on a basketball pitch in a very diverse community on the side of Montreal. This is not a conventional sports film. There's nobody winning or losing. There is the experience of young people, young men, meeting up continuously to play basketball, to move, the rhythm of the game, the experience of these people meeting up, the community building that happens there is expressed in this film in the most silent, impressionistic way. Jialai Wang is studying in Brussels, in Germany, in Belgium. And from Brussels, she is continuously in touch via FaceTime, via her telephone, with her mother back home in Shanghai. I think this is one of the most brilliant new generation films that, in a way, are partly there on the spot, in the place, in Shanghai, when she goes back to visit her mother, and partly via simply a film through her broken, scratched mobile screen. A new generation, a new experience of the world, new communication tools that make new film language. More than that, we also here see a part of life in China, a part of the experience of a woman getting older and becoming more and more religious, trying to survive her last few years alone, without her daughter who left the country, after the death of her mother, after her divorce, and finding that crossing to the other side, which is what Paragate is in Buddhist tradition, is the way to survive or to spend those last few years on earth. An extremely promising new filmmaker, Jialai Wang. Kumyana Novakova comes with Silence of Reason. Here, there is a very boundary-pushing artistic approach. Silence of Reason is on the shocking, painful history of the Focha women imprisonment, or the way that during the Bosnia and Herzegovina war, mainly Serbian soldiers exploited and enslaved women sexually. The stories that this film documents and brings to us are actually the stories that led in The Hague to considering, to acknowledging that rape is a form of torture and that sexual slavery is a crime against humanity. Until these stories emerged, that was not the case. In this film, Novakova is faced with this amazing, bewildering challenge of telling these stories respectfully, without devaluing them and trying to make them dramatic. What she does here is also very visible in other works this year, and gradually more and more of that is happening, is a very elaborate use of writing, of text on screen. So we watch here, and watching is also an audible but also a reading experience. Dulce Fernandez comes to us with Tales of Oblivion. Here, there's another very interesting film that is basically here. This film starts with the premise that while trying in the south of Portugal to build a new parking lot, a good-looking, smart-looking, nice, ambitious, contemporary, modern times parking lot underground, archaeologists discover a big mass grave. And in this underground, unknown mass grave, the skeletons of 100 and something, 150 human beings are actually chained to each other. And then our DNA research starts, and then we discover that actually these were African slaves. And they never received a proper burial, and we don't know how they died, on the ship or after arrival to Portugal. But in a way, this is the starting point, the premise of Dulce Fernandez's examination of how we hide such history and how we also need to undig it, to dig it up. Thermodielectric is probably an ideal example of an envisioned film. Here, the filmmaker is using family archive and the archives of her grandfather, who was a prominent Brazilian experimental physicist who left a mark on experimental physics. And there she constructs a family history that is truly very deeply intertwined with physics, with his theory of thermodielectric. And through that, we suddenly start to see physics as a form of poetry. It is a love story between her grandfather and her grandmother. But the way he understands physics and the way love operates, I think we all start thinking about our own experience with love also, and our experience with physics suddenly becomes not so alien from each other. The Wasp and the Orchid, Saber Zamouri starts from his village in the Tunisian desert, where the only television that you can see is French television. Because the French, la francophonie, as an approach to Africa, and North Africa also, was very clear and strong that a lot of investment was put into people, even in the furthest small village in the desert, are speaking French and watching French television. But today, they're all actually in Paris, and there aren't many left back home to watch. So in this film, in a very open and poetic approach, Saber Zamouri is trying to examine, was it really a choice going to Paris? Or was it already how we grew up watching that we must? Now to the international competition. These here are the best films of the year. The films that come well-rounded, strong, balanced, coherent, and relying on tradition, relying on the strong basis of the experience of documentary cinema over the 120 years that is its age. We begin from a first film. Shorekat Vardanyan is a young, first-time filmmaker from Armenia. She made a film with her family while she, her father, her mother, who are both artists, are waiting for news about her brother, who was 21 years old, a musician, who was doing his military service in Gorno-Karabakh and disappeared. It is a journey to one of our world's most current conflicts, current disasters, current challenges, but not in a geopolitical view. Rather, we are invited to live with a family through the hardest of times. It is beautiful. It shows a lot of talent. It's heartbreaking, but it also is indispensable. Juan Palacios takes us to the Wadden. In the Wadden Sea, there's a small Danish island called Mandu. I think it was 28 people who live on Mandu. Mandu is probably going to be drowned by water. Global warming is real. And the people living there are trying to make peace with the fact. Mandu has a memory from the 16th century when it was drowned, and only 2 persons survived because they were in the city bringing goods to the island. The island is still marked by that memory 400 years ago or so. But it's looking at the future where the past might actually fold and come back again. Brilliantly shot, with a very coherent, strong grip on rhythm. Vita Maria Drigas in Danger Zone takes us to a truly bewildering or amazing knowledge of something that I don't think is commonly known, which is war tourism. Drigas is carrying us with 3 or 4 characters who are very keen, fanatic tourists who pay a lot of money to a very special kind of tour guides to give them the chance to spend time on front lines in the middle of big conflicts. So these are people who would pay a lot of money to find themselves on the borderline of a war, on the front line in Syria or in Palestine or Afghanistan or in Africa, in Central African Republic, where they are enjoying the adrenaline rush. It is a film that shows us an extreme example of where cynicism can lead, and also makes one think a lot. It's quite unsettling, and at the same time truly well made. Anirban Dutta and Anupama Srinivasan take us to a conflict in the east of India that I didn't know about until they told us. The conflict there has been going for years, and there's a village in between the rebels and the government-controlled areas. This village, because it is falling in between the conflicting parties, this village has no electricity. Until now, it never received electricity. And then the Indian government is having a discussion or starting peace negotiations with the rebels behind this village. Gradually, one of the items on the negotiation table is electricity. This film happens at this moment when the people in this village are preparing themselves to finally receive an electrical current. They are digging holes and trying to think how to judge what's the good hole size to fit an electricity pole, because they never had one. I will not say more about what will happen, but it is, it truly is always shocking to discover how much we do not know about our world. Mohammed Jabali, Palestinian filmmaker, Gaza filmmaker from Gaza, showed us his first film at IDFA 2016, I believe with the title Ambulance. It was a memorable film. And then when he did that, he could not come to IDFA. He could not come to IDFA because he was stuck in Norway. He was on an exchange trip to Norway. And while he was there, the borders of Gaza were closed. This is 2014. And when the borders of Gaza were closed and he could not go back, he had to find family among the culture and art community in Tromsø, in the extreme north of Norway. Those were wonderful people. He found loving, caring human beings there who could help him finish his film and continue, live on, try to feel normal when it is impossible to feel normal. Bali made this into a film. The story of getting stuck in the very north of Norway and enjoying the beauty of the landscapes in the north while always trying to stay in touch with his family back in Gaza, receiving videos from them and seeing the reality of every day in Gaza while trying to remain normal. The title of his film is Al-Haya Hilwa, Life is Beautiful. From Georgia come Eleni Asatiani and Soso Dumbadze with the film Limitation, another re-narrating or retelling of history that also sheds light on something or part of contemporary history that we didn't know. In Limitation, the filmmakers are reconstructing what happened right after Georgia became an independent country. In 1992, there was an elected president, there was opposition, and there was a lot of former Soviet and KGB intervention. There was a lot of international power intervention, and there was a massive civil war that was not easy at all to analyze, to understand, to defragment. And what they do now, after all these years, is that they try to reconstruct that moment from the different viewpoints of government, opposition, and international media. And they do that, interestingly, only through material that they can find, or footage that they can find on the internet, because one of the disasters of such history is that there is no such thing as a coherent, accessible archive. Selling a colonial war of Insoratstake is a huge film. It is a massive undertaking of the filmmaker to examine the cover-up of the so-called police action of the Dutch government in Indonesia between 1945 and 1949. It is a film that travels the world and digs up an amazing amount of great archival material to examine how that magical genius spin-off or spin doctoring of reality happened, and how until today that cover-up and the articulation, the way it was named and considered and written, is still protecting the Netherlands from the consequences that could be of what was done in Indonesia at that time. It is a courageous, big undertaking that I believe works also as an international or a global prototype for how the end of colonialism came about and how, in a way, the kind of continuity we still see of it. The Burden, Elvis Ngaibino Saba, is a film from Central African Republic. Here we go to a traditional rural community or society where a couple of loving wife and husband have AIDS, but that's a secret because in their religious community, AIDS is seen as a punishment of God. So they have to hide it, but they have to find ways to get better. And medicine is not accessible for them in the Central African Republic. All they can do is try everything possible, all forms of prayer, all forms of magic, all forms of any kind of possible suggestion that can save them from AIDS without exposing them, because they're so ashamed that they have AIDS. It is a sign they are not good people. What is special here is that unlike most stories from Africa on AIDS, we are going with a Central African Republic filmmaker who is telling us about these traditions, these challenges, this religious fanaticism and fantasies, and who is introducing us in the most loving way to this couple. Prominent Myanmar Taiwanese filmmaker Midi Z made a brilliant documentary film with the title The Clinic. It is certainly a film to remember, a film that should not be missed. It's one of the year's absolute must-see films. In Yangon, in Myanmar, two doctors who are also artists have a clinic. It is a down-to-earth, very accessible clinic for anyone to be treated. And in this clinic, in addition to medicine and medical treatment, they also offer art therapy. In Myanmar today, with all the political disaster since the coup d'etat in Myanmar, the military rule in Myanmar, mental health is really not in a good shape. So people with mental health challenges are continuously around and continuously needing help. There, the doctor decides to make a fiction film about this. And he does. And we live through this experience of the doctor, the patients, and that oppressive reality around them, getting all the way from wanting to make a film until making it and going to an international festival with it. And then we also, again, start to see how art and layers of meaning and layers of what's real and what's not real start to mix and to offer us a much more complex image of the world than we can see in any other way. From the forests of Paraguay comes the last filmmaker, Sebastián Peña Escobar, takes us with two grumpy, extremely interesting and funny old friends, two men, lonely men, who have nothing but the friendship of each other. One is a world authority on butterflies, and the other is a renowned expert of birds. They spent decades in the Paraguayan forest studying it and examining its shrinkage, the fact that it is disappearing gradually. So the filmmaker takes us there. We meet these two old, grumpy, brilliant scientists. We spend time with them as they express their anger at what we all are doing in our daily lives and what that is causing to birds, to insects, to trees, and to forests. India's foremost documentary filmmaker, Anand Patwardhan, is famous for many things. He's the inspiration behind the new wave of Indian documentary filmmakers that is taking the world. He is famous for being a great filmmaker with a big filmography, despite the fact that he has categorically, throughout his life, refused to ever be funded. And Anand Patwardhan makes serious films about serious political issues always, and for the very first time, we have an Anand Patwardhan personal film. He has never done that before. The world is changing. The world is family is an ancient Sanskrit proverb or say. It comes from the old Hindu tradition, and to Patwardhan, the world is family contradicts deeply with the rise of Hindutva, with Hindu chauvinism on the rise now in India. He brings it back to own it, to liberate that tradition from chauvinism. The history of the family of Anand Patwardhan, his parents as they get old and carry us throughout the history of India. The uncles of our filmmaker were very close to Mahatma Gandhi. The rulers of the country now are very close to the ones who killed Mahatma Gandhi. His mother is a great porcelain artist, quite a renowned one. And his father goes every morning to the park to enjoy the laughing clubs in the park that we know from other films before in India. The history of the family of Anand Patwardhan is the history of India's independence and is also the history of the British separation or the British-led separation between Pakistan and India. The remapping of that part of the world was all part of the story of just 3 generations of Patwardhan's family. So here is, in 90 minutes something, an amazing exploration of the past 70, 80 years of Indian history through the most simple, heartwarming family experience. Cross-section awards, I must mention, we do not have a section for first films anymore. We don't have a section for Dutch films, but our programming team nominates films from all the different sections, and a highly capable jury of international professionals come to watch these films and award Best Dutch Film, the Binnengeluid IDFA Reframe Award, which is dedicated to the creative use of archive in filmmaking, and the IDFA Award for Best Feature, First Feature. This year, we also have many more first films than usual. We do see this as a phenomenon. We are proud of this. We are proud to see that IDFA is the launchpad of talent from around the world. We are proud to see that our program is so global and international, and it reflects what seems to be an expression of trust by filmmakers who are underprivileged, underrepresented, that this is the festival that will celebrate them and that will provide them with a safe space where their own worldviews will be respected and presented. Now, to the well-kept secret of our opening film, IDFA 2023 opening film is going to be A Picture to Remember by Olga Chernych. A Picture to Remember is a personal essay that introduces us to the filmmaker, her mother, and her grandmother. Just to get to know and spend time with these 3 women is to examine the current reality of being Ukrainian, but also the history of 100 years or so of Ukrainian experience. The grandmother who survived World War II lives in Donetsk, in the Donbass, lives under Russian control. The mother lives in Kiev. The daughter lives in other places. The communication between the three, the family footage, the archive of the family, create this complex image of a history that is otherwise much more elaborate than ever putting together in one film. So what's brilliant about A Picture to Remember is that the actual personal angle of the three generation of women gives us all of these dimensions of history, of politics, of the experience of women, and at the same time, the current context of war, but also the history of war that did not just start now. The grandmother experienced World War II. The mother lived through USSR. The daughter is now trying to make films in the middle of the new war. And they all can connect on a telephone and try to have a chat. It's a brilliant film. It is a film that was supported by the IDFA Bertha Fund, and the filmmaker took part in our IDFA project space before, and this makes us extremely proud with the film she ended up making, and we look forward to sharing the film with the world and to celebrating it on the opening night. I'd like to acknowledge the team who did this together with me. The film program selection team did lead us here because it was a very elaborate, long process that we thought a lot about and we designed a lot. This is what is special about IDFA. This is about film program, but this applies also to our filmmaker support activities and to our industry activities. We believe that being truly open, truly international, truly inclusive is not about quota and is not about measuring output, but rather about being humble, being open to sharing the power of decision. The process is what is inclusive, open, and international. And if the process is such, then the output can be up and down, left or right, and can keep on changing. Selected the films of this year comes from 17 countries, all the way from Taiwan to Brazil. 1/3 of the team comes from the Netherlands. That is, of course, the highest representation. 2/3 of the team are women or identify as women. And this way, we know that what we do here is truly international and is balanced in every way. So, sharing power is the key to the way that a program like what I just presented is done. I salute and thank everyone on this list and look forward to seeing all of them soon and to have you all with us. Now, among our many partners, sponsors, and supporters, the ones on screen now are the leading ones, but the list goes on and on and on. We could have never done this without, and we are so proud that we keep building relationships with many different kinds of partners and sponsors, that we keep adding value to them and they add value to us. And we keep, we keep welcoming the world's largest audience in a documentary film festival ever. Waiting for you at IDFA, waiting to go through difficult, serious discussions, to watch inspiring and challenging films and not be trapped into our own ideas. Thank you.